Okay, it's good to be back live here in Brooklyn, New York. Baruch Hashem, it was really nice. It was nice to come back, and everything was nice. It was short. Everything was Baruch Hashem. And most amazing thing, thanks to Zoom, we didn't miss one share. And even Motzei Shabbos was interesting because I had one guy there. Rabbi Rosenzweig was there, so I had one guy on because everyone for you was Shabbos. It was very interesting. And Penny was there also, but he wasn't on. Listen, we would. Okay, anyway, so what?
Penny's not here.
We're doing the sugya of Avelis. We're up to Yud Tes Amid Beis. We're at 1, 2, 4, 6 lines in the bottom. So we all know that there's a din of 7 days of Avelis, and there's a din of 30 days of Avelis. There's even a din of 1 day of Avelis. There's even a din 3 days of Avelis. They're all different halachos. But with the following shiloh was Boy Minei Abai Me Rabba Kivru Beregel. Let's say so the kfur takes place on the regel. So we know that there's going to be shiva because it didn't start yet to be mafsik, right? However, regel oiloi leminyan shloshim or ein regel oiloi leminyan shloshim. Can you start counting the 30 even though the 7 is going to start afterwards? What's the difference? Leminyan shiva lo can be boile. Regarding 7, it's not a question. Why? Because the halachas of shiva, right? The halacha of shiva, are not oila. Because on the mitzvah of during the regel, you can't go ahead and do the things that during shiva. You have to wear shoes during the regel. You can't turn over your bed during the regel, which is all halachas of shiva. So limian shiva like kami boila deloy naga. It's not noig until what? Deloy naga mitzvah shiva regel. Ki kami boile limian shleishim. Why? Because the halachas of shleishim. Because during the regel, it's also to press your clothing, it's also to take a haircut. You can't want So in other words, the halachas of shloshim coincide with the regel. So maybe it counts. Al shiva it doesn't because you can't be noig avelis and the halachas, as we said, kfiyas amita and then wearing shoes. That you can't do the 7, but the 30. Since you're doing it anyway, machmas the fact that why you can't do it during the regel can account towards the shleishim. Very, very interesting shayla. So Amalei, so Rabbi told Abaya, ain't oila, it doesn't count, and you have to count 30 afterwards. In other words, suspended animation. If someone dies during the regel, you don't count 7, you don't count 30, nothing. You still don't do anything till after the regel. Esibei hakoiva es meisai shnei yomim koidma regel. If somebody goes ahead and buries his dead 2 days before the regel, you're going to count 5 after the regel. Now, we don't pass like this, guys. This is the Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that 3 days before the regel, then it's mafsik. But we pass, guys, a second, as long as you can do noig anything. In other words, if you're aware, if I feel a sha'achas, even 1 hour, even less, and you do something, the regel's mafsik. But again, this is based upon our Mishnah that 3 days before, then it'll be mafsik. So here you're short 2 days before. So you're short the 1 day to be mafsik, that the regel should be mafsik your avelis. So what do? You keep 2, the regel doesn't count, and now you're going to make up what? You're going to make up 5. The regel doesn't count, and now you're going to make up 5. So Shnei Yomim Kaidma Regel. Someone buries his dead 2 days before the regel. Moine Chamishi Yomim Acha Regel. You're going to count 5 days after the regel. Now during those 5 days, during those 5 days, you'll be able to go ahead and have them go ahead and do it. Now I have Rashi B'Ksav Yader. It's Gavaldik. He says, "What is Malach Nasal Yidei Acherim?" But Oisa Chamishi Yomim, and those you don't have this, guys. Unless you have an art school. And the 5 days, she'ein chamurim kol kach kulan hein kilo hayas smuchim lekfuras meisai. They're not as severe as if they were within the 7 that you bury the dead. Mashein can be me'avelo mamish kidamidin el. They know it's not be me'avelo el dava nevad. Guys, the only thing you'll be able to do during the 7 is something that's nevad. So this already. In the minion of 7, you're past it because of the regel. So you're making up the 7 by doing another 5 because you were short. But these 5 are not as severe as it was 7. In other words, If it was a regular case of what of regular avelus, you wouldn't be able to do anything for you unless it's a davar oven, right? Mashen came over here, since it's not a regular avelus. Why is it not a regular? Because you had two, you had the regular in between, and now you're making up 5 for 2. So we're more lenient on, and what's the leniency? And the leniency is that melacha could be done, even if it's not a davar avod, melacha could be done al yedei acher. And his house, his servants could go ahead and do things bitzina. And there's no nichem avelim. Ve'ein rabbim, and the rabbim, they're not misasek. You know why? Because they did it on the regal. The regal, you go ahead. Nichem avelim was done on the regal. So therefore, there's no nichem avelim those 5 days. Again, we're leading up to a question, right? What's that? Well, because why do we paskin that the regal, the 30 days don't count? They don't count towards the regal. Shekevar nisasku by beregal. The reason why you don't go ahead and be menachem avel those 5 days, because you already were menachem avel during the 7 days of the regal. Kol shel dava, kol shu mishum avel. Anything that is a din of avelis, regal mafsikoi. The regal is mafsik, and you'll make it up after the regal. The kol shu mishum iske rabim. And anything that it has to do with the Rabbi Menachem, ain't regal mafsika. It's not mafsik. It continues on, and it's finished afterwards. Okay, that's the first din. Now again, the first din is when did the death took place? Before the regal, guys. Again, we didn't get to Akashi yet. Again, just for those who've joined late, 30 days. When you have the 30 days, do they count towards the Avelis or not count towards the 30-day Avelis? Why? Because in the regel itself, you're going to be noyig the halachas of not taking a haircut, right? Not pressing your clothing that you can't do. So Mimela doesn't count. The Shiva doesn't count, but the 30 days doesn't count or not. That's a question. We wanted to say it does not count. We just bought a brisa that said, what happens if a person died 2 days before? And we bought those halachas. Now, a second din. Shloisha yamim b'seifa regel. If a person at the end of the regel, 3 days before the regel was over, a person died. Moina shiva acha regel. You count 7 after the regel. However, arba yamim rishonim, the first 4 days, rabbim misaskin by. The first 4 days, the rabbim are misasik. You know why? Because since they could have been noig on the regel, dichem avelim, those 3 days counted. They counted towards that. Shloish yom machroinim. We're on Daf Chaf, 5 lines down. Daf Chaf Amalala, 5 lines down. However, a shloish yom machroinim ein rabbim misaskin bo. The next 3 days, you don't have nichem avelim. Shekvenis asku beregel. Because you're already oisik on the regel. So far, no kasha. Guys, the regel oila loy, and the regel is oila. And now we have a kasha. Okay. The regel counts towards the 30. Okay, one more time. We know there's a 7 and 30. If a person dies on the regel, and therefore we want to know the 7 days for sure does not start until the clock doesn't start ticking after the regel. However, the 30 days does it stop during the regel? Why? Because the same halachas of 30 of Avelis coincide with the halachas of the regel. You can't take a haircut during the regel. You can't press your clothing during the regel. So the Gemara, the Shaila, does the 30 days count or not? And Rabbi told the Abaye it doesn't count. To that, we're asking over here, it's mashma, it says that what? That it does count. For regel oilaloi, and the regel meaning the days of the regel count detract from the 30. My love seifa. My love is not going on the seifa where the death took place during the regel, and then you can be paisha the shaila. And the Gemara says no, a reisha. It's going on the reisha, and the reisha we began the count already because it began 2 days before. Okay, just to summarize, guys. Just to summarize, listen up. Outside, we have our shaila. Does the 30 days count or not during the regel? We have 2 cases. The first case was that before the regel, 2 days before the regel, someone died. So obviously, if 2 days before the regel someone died, you began your 7. You began your 7. Good, and then you completed the 5 afterwards. The next case was that someone died during the regel. So the first case has no bearing on our shaila whatsoever. Our whole shaila is 30 start counting when person dies during the regel. Over here in the Reisha, it can't have any bearing on a shaila because they died 2 days before the regel. The second case is a person dies, there's 7 days to the regel, 4 days in, a person dies. So now you're going to not start your shlosh until after, you're not going to start what? The count till afterwards. And then it says the 30 days start counting. The Havamin is the 30 days you start counting on the second case. The second case, therefore, it's a kasha on Rabbah. You, Rabbi, say it doesn't count the 30 days during the regel. From the second case of our Mishnah, it's mashma, of the Brisa, it does count. And for the Gemara, that statement that it does count is not going on the second case. It's going on the first case. The first case is pashut that it counts. Why? You began the 7 before the regel. So of course you began the count of 30. So therefore it has no bearing on a shaila. And it remains, Rabbi said that the 30 days do not count during, take off your 30 days, you have to start counting the 30 days. So a person loses somebody the first day of Pesach, the 30 days don't start counting until afterwards. Ein oilah min aminyan. Says the Gemara Esavei, regel oilah leminyan shloishim. The regel is oilah leminyan shloishim, meaning the regel does count towards the shloishim. Ketzad kivroi betchilas haregel. Let's say one loses a relative on the first day of the regel. One loses a relative on the first day of the regel. Minus shiva acha regel. You're going to count 7 after the regel. Again, you can't, as we already replace it, that the only time the regel is mafsik, it stops, is when it takes place before. But when it takes place, you didn't begin it yet, then no. Malacha can be done by others. We have other so his servants can do things clandestinely in the house. The ein Rabbi misaskenbo. And after the regel, those 7 days, there's no nichem avelim. Misaskenbo by regel because they did nichem avelim the regel. And here's the key line: the regel oilalai, and the regel counts. So if a person loses a loved one on the first day of the regel, the minyan of 7 doesn't start until after the regel, but the minyan of 30, the clock starts right then. A mafurisha upshlag on Rabbah, a mafurisha brisa that disagrees with Rabbah, and therefore the Gemara says tiyufta is a knockout punch. Goodbye, finished. Rabbah's then is it does count. The 30 days it does count. The 30 days do count. Okay. Kiyasa Ravin, when Ravin came from Bavel, married to Sol to Bavel, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Afilu kivlu beregel, even if you buried on the regel, that you're going to count shloshim. Rabbi Elazar l'Rapadas berei. Rabbi Elazar taught the Rapadas his son. Afilu kivru beregel, even if you went ahead and buried on the regel, the 30 days would start counting at that point in time. 30 days. Okay, so again, just reiterate, we had a shaila, does the 30 days count or not? Predicated upon that in the regel, you can't do the same things you can't do in the 30. Rabbi wanted to say it doesn't count, where you have a Mefurish Brisa and Rabbi Yochanan saying it does count, and the 30 days count. If a person fulfilled the Avelis by turning over his bed 3 days before the regel, again, one of the dinim halachas of Avelis, which we don't do bisman hazeh, they used to turn over the bed. So a person 3 days before, and again, that's another halacha we don't paskin 3 days before, as we'll see from this Gemara. We paskin even in an hour before, even a minute before. I feel kiver bregel. You don't have to make it up. In other words, 3 days. This is our Mishnah. If 3 days before the regel you were noig avelis, the regel stops your avelis. That's it. That's our Mishnah. We don't paskin like that. So, but this is the Brisa that goes in conjunction with our Mishnah. Just like our Mishnah says 3 days before his maps, the regel goes ahead and stops it. So too, over here, 3 days before regel. Kfiyas Amita is another way of saying that you're an Avil. Even 1 day, even if you have 1 day, even 1 hour. I knew a person, lost somebody like 2 hours before Pesach, and that was it. What? Chaim Klagsman?
Everybody running.
Yeah.
I remember.
Chaim Kai's was his father.
I don't remember who.
Yeah, it had to be his father. His mother was at Levaya. Yeah.
And I was
I
literally
don't
sure.
remember who it was.
You're making a mistake. That wasn't fire.
Maybe then it was his wife.
There's no shiva.
I remember going to his house.
Yeah.
Running to his house literally before you.
Benish Mendel
Huh?
lives very close to Yantiv, no?
I don't know.
Finish. Anyway, so again, we pass it. We pass it again. It's as weird as it sounds that we pass that that's it. My grandmother died like 2 days before Shavuos. I still remember it was like but yeah. Okay, so we pass like this. Not for 3 days. We pass afilu yamecha afilu sha'achas. Amar Rebbe Elazar says Rebbe Elazar, Rebbe Shimon, hein hein divrei Beis Shammai, hein hein divrei Beis Hillel. This dialogue that between that Mishnah said Rabbi Eliezer said 3 days, Nachum said 1 day. That's the same dialogue that takes place between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai yom shlosh yom, Beis Hillel yom afilu yom echad. It's very interesting. We say Rabbi Eliezer shamuti. Machlekes Rabbi Eliezer. We never pass like Rabbi Eliezer. The great Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkin is the first time I mentioned the Shas. The last time I mentioned, we don't pass like him because one of the reasons is Rabbi Eliezer shamuti. So it's two pshatim. Shamuti, one they put in Chayrim, famous Maisa in Bab Mitzia, where he disagreed with everyone. He went against the Rabbim and Torah Rabbi Shemayim. Rabbi Yeshua, we'll get to it. Very famous, probably the most famous. I got it in Shas. So Shamuti, when he was put in Chayrim, as a result, and words from Shamta, or Shamuti, he was a Talmud of Shammai. So very good. So he says 3 days. Shammai says 3 days. We say the Beis Hillel says Afilu Yom Echad. So therefore, this is very beautiful. The same conjunction between the Chachamim is Beis Hillel and Rabbi Eliezer is Beis Shammai. Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan, V'milo Amar L'chu Rav Yochanan, Rav Chia bar Abba, Rav Yochanan said Rav Chia bar Abba. The question is who's Satu Rav Huna? Afilu Yom Echad, Afilu Sha'achas, even one day, even one Sha'achas. It's very interesting. I looked up the halacha. Even you just need an hakara and do something to show that you knew that you were a novel. Take off your shoe. What? Take off your, you don't even rice and kriya. No, this rice kriya. This is something else. I'm mixing it up. I'm mixing it up. Rav Amar halacha katana di done. The halacha is like Atana and Amishnu said 3 days, like Beis Shammai. Lama shloisha. Ravina ikla l'sura. The Paras. Ravina came to the town of Surah, the Paras. Amma le Rav Chaviva le Ravina. Said Rav Chaviva to Ravina. Hilchasamai. What's the halacha? How long do you have to have before in order that the regal should be mafsik? Amalei afilu yom echad, afilu sha'achas. Even 1 day, afilu 1 hour. Yasser Rav Chia bar Abba of Rav Ami. Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. Akilo the Rav Yitzchak but Elazar. Rav Chia bar Abba and Rav Ami and Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. They were sitting on the porch of Rav Yitzchak ben Elazar. When the following halachic discussion came out between them. Now, how do you know Avelis is 7 days? How do you know Avelis is 7 days? It says v'hafachti. It says v'hafachti chagechem le'evel, and I will turn your chagechem, your chagim le'evel to evel. Ma chag shiva, just like chag is 7 days. Sukkot and Pesach are 7 days. Af Avelis shiva, so to Avelis is 7 days. Fred the Gemara of Ema at Seres. Why do we say it's 1 day like Shavuos? The Chad Yom who says Gemara. We need that diak of 1 day for Reb Shimon ben Lakish. Shimon Lakish Shimon Yehuda Nesiya. Minayin l'shmur rechoika she'einu hegas el yom echad. We're going to see in a minute if a person does not know about Avelis for 30 days. Right, it's called a shmur rechoika. That it comes out after you find out after a later period of time. So how do you know? In that case, you're only going to keep 1 day. This is what I looked up. And I would fafti chagechem, guys, a lashon rabin. Chagechem is a lashon of rabin, meaning there's more than one chag. For Ashken at Seres, they agree chad yom chag, and we find that Seres is called what? Chad yom chag. So very good. So we have traditional 7 days. That's based upon the pasuk v'chakti chagechem evel, and in addition, we have for shmur rechoika. We have 1 day, which is like similar to the Shavuos. Okay, look at Tosfos, guys. Fourth Tosfos down. I was waiting for someone to ask me, what about Shmini Atzeres? What are 8 days? Sukkot, you have 7 days plus Shmini Atzeres. So why do we opt for 7 days? Why don't we say 8 days? Says Tosfos, right? Says Says Taisvis. All right.
It serves its own young.
Says Taisus, ma chag shvi, v'shami daik ema shmoina, like shmoina the chag, umeshani shmini regel b'nei atzmahu, as Rabbi just said, shmini is a regel by itself, right? It's a regel by itself, okay? V'yasu la'aviv evil shivas yomim. Why doesn't it say they made 7 days? You know, guys, the pasuk in Amos. It's much more powerful to bring a lima from the Torah. What does it say by Yosef and Yaakov Avinu? It says in the pasuk, "Vayasu they made la'aviv evel shivas yamim." So that you can the hasam koidim kfura haya. There was before the kfura. There was guys shmak, right? He was embalmed. It was before the kfura. Where Yushami Mishani they only meet them koid the Matan Torah. This is the biggest side. Yushami says you kill him from Matan Torah. Vasim Yushami Ma'aser Kartuva. They bring other psukim. So very fascinating Tosfos, an answer to the question, right? Shmini Atzeres is 8. We say no, it's a chag b'fnei atzmai. So what about what? Why don't we bring a pasuk from the Torah rather than a pasuk from a Navi? The answer is the pasuk of the Torah is speaking either we're speaking before the Kefura or another pshat before Matan Torah. The Yerushalmi holds you do not learn after something before Matan Torah. You say this to Getaisis. Says the Gemara Vayta Torah Rabbanan Shmur Kroiva Neheges Shiva Ushleishim. A Shmur Kroiva, news of losing one's loved one is Noyek 7 days and 30 days. Shmur Rechaika, a Shmur from a distance. And Neheges El Yemech is only 1 day. Ezi Kroiva ve'ezihi Rechaika, which is considered a Kroiva, which is considered Rechaika, right? Says the Gemara. Kroiva b'tay shleishim, Rechaika lacha shleishim. Kroiva is if you hear about it within 30 days, and Rechaika is lacha shleishim. Dibur Rabbi Akiva. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Chachamim maimrim achas shemua Kroiva v'achas shemua Rechaika leheges shiga u'shleishim. In other words, this is a well-known when a person, let's say, has a relative that necessarily a parent, but even a parent that they're not close to, they try to keep the news away as much as possible. It's almost impossible. But if you're able to keep it away for 30 days, then the person, upon hearing the news, just has to do, as long as they do something, mucha milsa, they do take off his shoe. Even taking off your shoe, such a thing, that would be the v'yotza, the 1 day of Availus. Amar Rabbi Rav Chanan Rabbi Yochanan, kol machem shat ha'moitze yachid mekel v'rabbi machmirim. Anytime in the rules of Piskei Halacha, when you find one yachid is lenient and a majority are more strict, more stringent, halacha karabim, the halacha is in conjunction with the majority, chutz mizu, with the exception by Avelis. Sha'af b'shav Rabbi Akiva mekel, even though Rabbi Akiva was mekel, even though he was mekel, the chacham machmirim and the chacham machmir, halacha Rabbi Akiva, the halacha is conjunction with Rabbi Akiva. Dama Shmuel, halacha k'divrei mekel be'evel, the halacha is like k'divrei mekel be'evel. Lo yaleinu, most of our veilus is all minhagim. It's you get the book. Some say yes, some say no. You do this, you do that. Very again, there is the concept of avelis. How long that avelis is, how long it be. That's it seems to be a big machlokes. But the halachas of avelis are very, very diverse. Reb Chanina aslei shmur davua. Reb Chanina, you know what? In Bisman Hazeh, it's very hard to have a shmur rechaika. In the old days, it was very easy to have a shmur rechaika. Yeah. Think about the old days before any communication, to not see one's parent was not uncommon. We could see you can go years without seeing your parent, even though you lived in close proximity. There were no telephones. There was no certainly no computers or there might have been Twitter and might have been maybe WhatsApp, but pigeons, right? A pigeon, right? To send the pigeon. Okay. Anyway, what he found out that he lost his loved one. That he lost his. Rav Klina found out that he lost his father. They came from the Kis. 1 day. You only have to be noig 1 day. Rav Nasan Barami Asulei Shmur the Imei Mibei Fazoi. Rav Nasan Barami came and news to him that he lost his mother. Asla Kamei the Rava Amalei said Hari Amu Shmur Rechaika in Heges El Yamechad, again the same psak. Bilvad. Eseve, you want to say it's only 1 day. Right? When do we say only 1 day? That's B'chamisha Masei Mitzvah. The Chamisha Masei Mitzvah over here means a sister wife, children. Aval al aviv al imoy shivu shleishim. So how can you say that? What we just gave two incidents where Rav Nassan and Rav Chanina, they kept for parents 1 hour, 1 day. You see what for parents it's what 37 and 30. So Malay. So he told him that's yichidahi. That's the opinion of a individual. That for Shmuel Rechaika that you keep more than 1 day is an individual's opinion, and we don't pass like the individual. The Tanya. Maisa umeis aviv shel Rabbi Tzadik ben Ginzik. There was a Maisa, and the father of Tzadik died in Ginzik. For the la'acha shalosh shanim, guys. After 3 years, I told you. If after 3 years, ubo v'shoel es Elisha ben Avua, and they came and asked Elisha ben Avua, was the Canaan Shimo, v'amru noigu shivu shleishim. They noig what, right? 3 and 7. So we see the opinion of 7 and 30 for Shmuel Rechaika is only opinion of a Yachid. In this case, the Yachid is identified as Elisha ben Avua. Now, we know Elisha ben Avua was the infamous Acher, right? An infamous Acher who went off the derech. We're going to see the Gemara in Chagiga Bez Hashem. But according to the Gemara in Nazir Daf Mem Dalid, this was in fact not Elisha ben Avua, but it was Yeshua ben Avua. We have a Gersh Yeshua ben Avua. There is another opinion, the opinion of a sefer called Shlomo ben Yassim is the Rishon that I happen to have the sefer. He says this is before he went off. But it's very interesting to go ahead and quote him. Okay. Okay, when the sons of Rabbi Achia died begoila, and he heard about it after a while, they kept 3 days man and 7 days. Any is it really so on a Shmuel Rechaika only 1 day, or that Rabbi Achia kept the Kasher Rabbi Achia kept 7 and 30. Now, fellas, in order to understand this it gets a little intricate over here. We know Rabbi Achia had a nephew Rav. Rav calls him Chavivi. Rabbi Chia had a step sister and a step brother. They married each other. So the following Gemara, Rav bar Achua de Rabbi Chia. Rav was the son of the brother of Chia. The Hu bar Achte de Rabbi Chia, who was the son of the sister of Rabbi Chia. So Rabbi Chia had a stepbrother, stepsister who married each other, and therefore Rav was had an uncle and an aunt who was uncle and aunts. You know what I'm saying? He saw the Lahasam when Rav went up to Eretz Yisrael, Amalei. So Rabbi Chia asked Rav, Abba Kayim, is your father Kayim? That means Ava was his father. Ava was the one who married his stepsister Amalei. Ima Kayemes. So Rav said to him, is Ima alive? Amalei, Ima Kayemes. Amalei, Rav said, Abba Kayim. In other words, they were both nifter, and Rav did not want to go ahead and say that. So Amalei, the Shameh, said Rabbi Chia upon hearing this. Now, guys, this is a Shmuel Rechaika. So upon hearing this, the Shmuel Rechaika regarding relatives, Chalitz lei min alei. So he took off his shoe. V'hoilach achrei Keli lebeis hamerchatz. He went after the Keli lebeis hamerchatz. And Shmamina klash. Shmamina aval asa b'nis sandal. When he took off his shoe, then aval asa b'nis sandal. Ushmamina shmur rechaika in reheges eliyam echad. The fact that he only was noyig for a short period of time. Ushmamina mixes yom kikulo, guys. He didn't even keep the whole day. So that's what even though we say 1 day, so therefore it doesn't have to be a whole day. Mixes yom, part of the day is like the whole day. Part of the day is like the whole day. But no, this was Reb Chia was this is Reb Chia's. It's Rav's. They were half sisters to Reb Chia. They were half sisters. No, they were step to each other. To Reb Chia, they were half, or else he wouldn't be noig at all. Right? To Reb Chia, no, Reb Chia's father, was right. They share. So now. So there's a question over here. Why don't we say that you don't rip? I'm talking about. Look at the Taisus, guys. Korea. Okay, let's wait on that. The timing is not so right. Let's wait. Let's wait. We'll fit it in. Says the Gemara. we have a kasha. Now the bottom is a kasha. You, Reb Achia, kept 7 and 30, and here we have Reb Chia keeping 1. So says the Gemara, what's the kasha? Reb Chia l'chud, Reb Achia l'chud. It's not the same person. It's not a contradictory action. They're two different people. The one who kept 7 days on a Shmur Rechaika was Reb Achia. The one who kept the 1 day on a Shmur Rechaika was Rav Chia. So the two separate people. So it's not a kasha. Amar Yosef Rabin. Shama Shmua Kroiva, if you hear a Shmua that one lost a relative within 30 days, Beregel, well, a Maitzia Regel Nasas Rechaika. Because you hear this? Let's say it's day 28, you find it out in the middle of the Regel. After the Regel's over, it's day 32. So if you say that the Regel, right, it's not suspended animation, but they count the day, then it's going to be considered Shmua Rechaika, because you couldn't be Noig Avelis. So you know what the halacha is? It counts towards the 30. In other words, it seems to be, fellas, it seems to be the following. Lafia, again, it just came to mind. When you think of Shmur Rechaika being 30 days, you'd say he didn't have that information. And it's, in other words, if information is withheld for 30 days, then you only have to keep 1 day. It seems more to say if you're not Noig Avelis within 30 days. Because over here, he's finding out, day 28, he's finding out. He knows that, but since he can't be Noig Avelis till day, in my scenario, day 32, it's a Shmur Rechaika. So it's a bit of a chiddush. I assume you would have thought like me, that if 30 days that goes by and you didn't hear anything, okay, so shine. It's not that. If you can't be Noig 30 days of Avelis, within 30 days of the death of the loved one, you can't be Noig Avelis, then it's only 1 day. Because over here, exactly what's happening. You know about it. It's day 28. You know about it. But nonetheless, since you can't be Noig Avelis and then day 28, only until day 32, therefore what? It's a bit of a good explanation. Tani, Rav Ada bar Demin Kesari Kamed Rabbi Yochanan, Shama Shmua Kroiv b'Shabbos. You heard on Shabbos, right? And now this is day 29. Ulamoitzi Shabbos Nasa Rechaika. Moitzi Shabbos, guys, it's day 30. Einen Noig El Yom Echad. You're only 1 day. This is just exactly what we just said, right? Mm-hmm. Now, question. Kaira or Eina Kaira? Do you rip or not? Comes Moitzi Shabbos. You're keeping that 1 day. Do you rip or not? You would say yes. Mm-hmm. You would be wrong. Rav Mani Yom Eina Kaira. Rav Mani says you do not rip. Right? Rav Mani says you don't rip. Right? Because what? Even though you know 1 day, you don't rip. Says the Gemara. Rav Chanina Amar Kareya. Rav Chanina says you do rip. The Allah is like Amalei Rav Mani Rav Chanina. Bishleim l'dias that I mean Eina Kareya. Hainu Delay Ika Avelis Shiva. Therefore, there's no Avelis Shiva. El Didoch Amar Kareya Kriya Blei Shiva Miika. You have 7 with. How could you have? In other words, once you're ripping, it's mashma you're an oval. Once you're ripping, it's mashma you're an oval. So if you're an oval, so you should keep 7 days, not 1 day. You mean you can't have ripping without 7? But Tanya, Isi Avud Reb Zera, Isi the father of Zera, Vimila Achud Reb Zera, the brother of Reb Zera, Kamed Reb Zera. Mishain lecholak lekraya. A person gets news about a relative that was nifta. He doesn't have a shirt to rip. But he gets one within 7 days. Kareya, he rips it. Shiva, if he hears about it after 7 days, ain't a Kareya. He doesn't rip. So Ani Reb Zera Basrei B'medem Mamurim B'chamisha Meisei Mitzvah. That's B'chamisha Mitzvah that you don't rip after 7. Al Aviv Alimoy Kareya. But a father, you will rip. So you see that what? So you see that Shiva and Kareya not dependent on each other. You see that Shiva and you thought that what? There's no Kriya without 7. That's what Rav Mani wanted to say. Guys, over here, what's happening? What's happening? You don't have a tunic. After 7 days, you get the tunic. For mother and father, you're going to rip. You're not keeping 7 days anymore. So you see that what doesn't. So the Rav, this is Rav Chanina says to Rav Mani, says the Gemara. Ki tanya hi lechavid avav imay. When are we speaking about this? This is speaking the kivud of the aim, and not bishumat bishum kriya. I'll explain. there's doing an action that is halachically required, and there's doing an action that it's halachically required, but for a different reason. When we go ahead and rip, we shouldn't say we, lo yaleinu. If a person's an ovel, you're ripping because you're an ovel. You're an ovel. Yeah. And halacha is an ovel rips. Whether you rip the right side, over the heart, not the heart, mother, father, brother, sister, there's different halachas exactly where you do rip. But you're ripping machmas the avelis. On the other hand, after 7 days, and you're ripping for a mother or father, that has nothing to do with you ripping for the avelis. That has to do with you be mechabi your father or your mother. That's what kivit over here. It's not a din of avelis. And therefore, you would think that you don't have to do it. Therefore, you wouldn't have to do it. Halachically, listen to this fascinating halacha. Let's say you love your sister very much, and you didn't have a tunic, and after 7 days, you have a tunic. If you would rip it, you'd be over in Bal Tashkas. If you'd rip it, you'd be over in Bal Tashkas. Dafka mother and father could you rip for? That illustrates what I'm talking about, guys. You understand? If you would say, guys, it's a din of avelis, of feeling of loss, so why limit it to your mother, your father? You have a relative you're very close to. And the answer is, stam to rip a beged. You can't rip a beged. It's Bal Tashkas. You can't just rip stam azoi. Therefore, why are we allowed to rip for a mother or father? If it's nothing to do with avelis, it has to do with kivud. It's a din of kavod. So the fact that you can't do it for other relatives illustrates what? Illustrates the Indian very nicely. So therefore, Rav Mani, that halachas like Rav Mani, that if that on a shmur or chayka, or after 7, if you find out you don't rip, but if the 7 days you don't rip, that's it. Tan Rabbanan, kol ha'omer parshas kahanim, all that we say in parshas achrei mos, she'koyin mitama lehen, that a kohen can be mitama to them. Avol misabel aleim. Those are the relatives that are of the. So the rule of thumb, those that are a kohen can be mitama to. That's the din of avelis that a person's chayiv to be misabel of. Ve'eluhei, 1 ishtoi, 2 aviv, 3 imai, 4 achiv va'achaisai from his father's side, paternal brother, sister, bino, son, bitai, daughter. Those are the relatives of what for a kohen. Now, that's le'inyan tuma. Le'inyan avelis, haisifu aleim, the chachomim added on, besides those relatives that a kohen is metamatu, right? We added on achiv v'achaisai absulei me'imai, his brother and his single sister maternally. Again, paternally, single sister, brother, maternally, they added this on, and v'achaisei nesua, and a sister that's married, bein me'aviv, bein me'imai. Okay, so therefore, the kohen can be misabel to a sister that's married, whether it's paternal. If it's maternal, it can't be matama at all. And now the avel is matama to, the avel is misabel over any sister, whether it's maternal or paternal married, and or it's maternal not married. Ukeshem shem misabel aleim, kach misabel al shniim shalahem. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. And just like you are misabel over these relatives, you misabel over shniim. Now we're going to get to Masechtas Yivamis, and we're going to get to Daf Chaf Aleph, and I'm going to give you a chart that I still remember from many years ago. That is the most difficult chart you'll ever see in your life, and that's why I remember the Gemara Yivamis. For example, can a person marry his grandmother? You can't marry your mother. Can you marry your grandmother? Your grandmother is considered a shnia. She's a second generation removed from the erva. The erva is your mother. The shnia is the second one removed. So if you look at Rashi, let's look at Rashi by us. Al shnia shelahen, just like you misabel on the original, you misabel on the one relative, one generation removed, says Rashi. Al shnia shelahen, avi aviv, grandfather, father of his father, grandfather. Val ben beno, the other generation down, on his grandson. Val ben bitoi, on his grandson from his daughter. Val ben achoso, or on his nephew. In other words, those would be shniyos, one generation removed. You misabel on your sister, guys, right? Would you be misabel on? So Rabbi Akiva says, just like you misabel on the original, you misabel on the next generation down, or up, right? Or up. So that would be a shnias, back in Gemara. So therefore, kshein shemisabel aleim, kach misabel al shneim shalahem. Div Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Ein misabel ala ben benai, only on a grandson, v'al avi aviv and a grandfather. The chacham amayim no, kolam misabel alav misabel imay. So the chayra chacham hainu tanakama, the chacham the exact same as Rabbi Akiva. Says the Gemara Yekiminayu is imay bebayis. You need to be that the relative has to be in the house. Ki hod amla Rav Chia berei v'chein amla Rav Huna l'Rabba berei be'apa in front of them noyeg abelusa. B'loyapa loy tenoy abelusa. So according to Rabbi Akiva, they don't have to be in the house. According to the Chachamim, they have to be in the house. What's the house? Let's see. Taisvis bi'apa noyeg avelus pirish b'taisvis b'chol dinei avelus nilas asando v'rechitza v'sicha, taking off the shoes and washing and anointing. The kulan and all of them calls manshu b'fanecha dafka in front of them. Perikamidik subis kamar imo b'bayis v'shema ba'apa dafka shema b'chol abayis. So does that have to be in front of the mamish or in the house? Lo Rabbi Akiva, they have to be even not in the house. Later chachamim would have to be in the house. Maruk v'shachav le bar chamua. Maruk v'loas bar the son chamur of his father-in-law. Right? I guess his brother-in-law, right? He lost his brother-in-law. Get ready for you from Israeli. Saval lemesev Allah sheva u'shleishim. He thought to go ahead and keep 7 and 30. So oil Rav Huna legabe. Rav Huna came and said, Ashkei and Amalei. So he found Rav Ukvat sitting avelis for his brother-in-law. Sudnaisa boyis lamechal, the suda of a mourner, the suda of an avel you want to eat. Le'amru lechaved ishtay. We only said lechaved ishtay elechama b'chamaisai. Only father-in-law midrabanan, father-in-law and mother-in-law to be misabel over. The Tanya, Misha Meis Chamav, someone who loses his father-in-law, a chamaisai or his mother-in-law. He can't force his wife to go ahead and put on makeup and put on rouge. Turn over the bed. He's like with his wife. She loses her father-in-law, her mother-in-law. She can't put on makeup. So she's like the veilus with the father. For a husband. Even though we said that a woman, you can't force the woman to go ahead and keep what, not keep avelus. She can go ahead and pour his cup. These are things that you can't do b'meinida. She can pour the cup, and she can make his bed. So one question, guys. You said kaifim mitasai. Over here it says make the bed. Mashma not kaifim mitasai. Secondly, if you know din of avelis, the chayre you can't wash. And here it says u'marchetzes leipon of yadav v'raglov. So kashan adodi. Do yes or no? Can you force your wife when she's in avelis to do these things for you or not? Say l'ashmamina kan b'chava v'chamaisai kan b'shakroivim. If it's chama v'chamaisai, if it's his father-in-law, mother-in-law, then you can't force it. Shakroivim that you'll be able to force. Tanya namihachi layomer l'chaved ishtai. We only said that you have to be misabel l'chaved ishtai el chama v'chamaisai b'vad. Only chamaisai v'chavas. Okay, we'll stop over here. Nice to see everyone again on a normal hour and back in the